Welcome back to Let's Be Frank, a storytelling podcast about an ordinary man who finds himself in extraordinary circumstances. It's also a story where you, yes you, the all-important listener, get the opportunity to be one of the fates that directs Frank's actions and decisions. When we last left, our group of heroes had managed to stop a war that never should have been. Now, they had to decide what action to take to uncover the culprit behind everything. What will poor Frank do? An all-important listener named me, no, not me the narrator, just a listener named me, advised Frank of what he needed to do next. So, after looking deep within himself and listening to that little inner voice, Frank opened his mouth and said,
"You see, it all boils down to information. Now, we know there's definitely someone going around spreading rumors and inciting fear, but we assume they're being controlled by someone else. What if it really is only one person? When we see we're choosing between what we know versus what we assume, it makes the choice pretty darn clear."
Ulrich approached Frank, moving all the way into his personal space, and looked him dead in the eyes.
I don't know how the fates work within you, Frank, puny man. I don't claim to understand any of the great mysteries in the universe. I can, however, tell you one thing with absolute certainty.
Ulrich then placed a hand on Frank's shoulder.
You have my trust. We ride for Auvendale immediately.
All right then, back to the horses.
We have to hurry so we can put as much distance between us and the army as possible.
Faster riding mean more time to find Shadow Spy.
Then let's go. We haven't a moment to waste.
But, I just fell off of my horse. At least the teamwork is working out a little better.
The general, noticing the group was one horse short, had one taken to Frank. The group then began the trip back to Auvendale. On the second morning, the group awoke to a thick mist in the area.
Well, lovely. This will slow us down when we don't need to be slowed down.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. Remember, anything that slows us down a little will slow an army down a lot.
Mog had said nothing, but he had a stone dangling from a cord in his hand, moving it about in the thick fog.
Season not right for fog like this.
Talana took out her book in her left hand and, after reading it a moment, began gesturing intricately with her right. Symbols formed in the air from her fingertip as she drew with light.
If it is magic, it is far beyond my ability to detect it.
It's of little matter. The King's Southern Road is well maintained and easy to follow in a blizzard.
The group made their way through the fog, careful not to lose the trail. However, after passing through a narrow point in the trail, the group came upon a curious crossroad no one remembered from the trip down.
I don't remember this place.
Damn it, we're off the main trail.
So where are we then?
We in fog.
So spoke the wise ranger of the domain of the obvious.
Mog Shaman.
Then maybe Mog should stick to what he knows best.
Huh. If Ulrich Ladyman do that, he will be bored soon.
And what exactly do you mean by that?
There's Auvendale.
Where?
Talana pointed to the ground at one of the signs removed from the post.
You people make far too much noise.
As the creature rose from its nap, the group could see his black hair sticking out everywhere from beneath his simple brown hat. His tan skin and pointed ears only served to amplify his emerald eyes and broad, wide smile.
Oh, he's just so cute. Oh,
You're a
look at him.
gnome.
Look at his little
Of course I'm a gnome.
hair.
I was a sleeping gnome, but you know what happens when you cross an orc with a pompous human?
Ooh, I don't know. What?
You get an awake and slightly angry gnome.
Good sir, we would be happy to be on our way once we know which of these paths leads to Auvendale.
That's what the sign's for.
Sign look broken.
The gnome looked back to the signpost, looked a little surprised, and then seemed to remember something.
Yes. Right. I had the path placards removed because they were pointing slightly in the wrong direction.
So, Shorty, do you remember which way goes to Auvendale?
Well, I had it memorized before someone came along and ruined my sleep.
And now?
You'll have to let me think a moment.
The gnome paced and wandered about the area for what seemed like hours, looking first at the splitting of the trail and then back to the signpost. Eventually, the gnome pointed.
Auvendale is that way.
Finally.
I think.
You think?
Yes, I do. It's a habit. You should try it.
How certain?
As certain as a gnome in a fog can be.
I normally think, only right now I'm trying hard to stop myself from booting a gnome into the mist.
Whoa. We don't have to resort to violence. We just have to speak his language.
I don't speak gnomish.
That's not what I mean.
Frank then turned to the gnome, walked to the post, and sat down beside it.
I mean, if he can't remember, he just can't remember.
What makes you think I can't remember?
It's okay, really? We all have things that are, difficult for us to do. It's not like we should expect you to just be able to climb up the pole and smack all 5 of them, where they belong. It's just too hard for some people. And you know what? That's okay.
Too hard? Too hard?
The gnome took off in Frank's direction, stopped to scoop up all of the signs, and upon launching himself off of Frank's shoulders, climbed the pole and placed all 5 signs back on it instantly.
See? Not a problem at all.
Frank turned and looked at Ulrich.
See? No problem at all.
Frank then turned back to the gnome.
It seems I underestimated your skills and abilities, good sir. You have proven me wrong. I will do my best not to underestimate you in the future.
It would be best if you did not.
The group took to their steeds once more and headed back off into the mist.
Frank, that was hilarious.
That was some shifty language there, mister. You normally seem too morally compromised to talk like that. Where'd you learn?
I'm an accountant. However, I have to deal with people in the sales department all the time. They're a different breed and shifty.
Ulrich just nodded as they continued into the fog, unaware of the gnome behind them making one small adjustment to the sign. In the evening of the second day, the group began to slowly exit from the mist.
Good. Now we can finally get our speed up about us.
Must hurry. Shadow Spy will leave city once knowing armies aren't fighting.
And with the fog, we've lost some of our time.
Oh, I've got a great idea. Do you all want me to sing us a song about moving faster and faster?
I'd love to hear
Wait
it.
a moment.
Bringing the group to a halt, Ulrich slid from his saddle and began making his way toward a large rock next to the side of the road.
Ulrich?
Don't we need to get moving?
Ulrich ignored the others as he examined the stone carefully. Then, without warning, he punched the stone with all of his might, his steel gauntlet clanging against the rough texture. He turned around, eyes cast downward, face filled with rage.
We're nowhere near Auvendale. We're in the wrong kingdom.
What kingdom are we in then?
Mine.
Ulrich raised his reddened eyes.
This stone. This is in my father's kingdom. My brother and I used to go on hunts with father. I was a capable hunter, but my brother had no stomach for it. So many times I would stay behind so we wouldn't feel alone.
Ulrich turned and looked at the stone once more.
We would play King of the Mountain here. We probably played over 100 times. He never won, not once. I wouldn't let him.
So, brother is king now, yes?
As he turned back, Ulrich's eyes closed slowly.
No, Mog. He is but a pale shade of the man who ruled this great and noble kingdom. A charade, a pretender, a poor joke. He is my brother. I cannot deny it, even if I wanted. But he is no king.
The group sat quietly a moment before Mog broke the silence once more.
How far from Auvendale, then?
The mention of the city seemed to bring Ulrich out of his mood a bit.
If we ride until dark, we can make it to the kingdom border. There, we camp and rest the horses. Barring no further fog, we should be in the walls of Auvendale by midday.
Ulrich mounted his steed and began making his way back the direction that they came. Mog kept close to Ulrich, as did Talana. Joanna and Frank rode alongside one another at the rear.
So, I take it that there's bad blood between Ulrich and his brother the king?
You could say that. See, Frank, when they were young, they were the best of friends. They were twins, so of course they were close.
They're twins?
Yep, like I said, 2 peas in a pod. But when their dad died, it changed them both. Neither for the better.
Joanna looked back at the trail that fell behind her, then looked back to the front again, wistfully.
Elric became the king he didn't want to be, and Ulrich became the stranger he didn't deserve to be.
I don't have any siblings, but I had a lot of very close friends growing up. I can't imagine brothers, much less twins, hating one another.
Oh, they don't hate each other, Frank. They're family. Their disagreements have made it hard for them to speak to one another honestly.
Falling into the rhythm of the horse's hooves, Frank thought about everything he had learned that evening before the group stopped at the border and rested their horses. Sure to Ulrich's prediction, they made it back within the walls of Auvendale by midday. After stabling their horses, the group formed up near the street.
So Ulrich and I will take the crest of the king and return it to him. He knows more about the etiquette than I do. Also, there's a question I would like to ask him.
Agreed. Joanna and I will begin search for Shadow Spy.
Yep. I'll also talk to a few of the local brigands to see if they have heard anything.
What about Frank?
Me? Oh, I'll just wander around. Watching for the telltale signs of someone using ventriloquism.
What signs?
A voice happening when no one's lips are moving. Also a wooden plank.
4 huge sighs later, Frank made his way into the main area of the street to begin his search.
Now, if I were some sort of shadow spy, where would I hide so a lot of people could hear me, but no one could see me?
As Frank made his way in, he saw a small, shaggy brown puppy walking toward a fast-moving wagon. Moving as quick as his sore legs would allow, he managed to scoop up the pup before it met its untimely fate.
Whoa there, little guy. You know you're supposed to look both ways before you cross the street, right?
Frank held up the pup and examined it. She was almost certainly a stray, save for the worn pink ribbon tied around her neck. Frank's eyes lit up and shone brightly.
Ashi? Is that you?
Receiving no response besides a lick to his nose, Frank carried the pup carefully and made his way deeper into the outskirts of the city. Meanwhile, Mog and Joanna had already found themselves in quite the predicament.
Look, I can explain.
Explain? Explain? How do you plan to explain 3 years, 3 long years, without paying your dues? I heard you got a talented tongue, but this time you met your match. I cannot be swayed.
What makes you think that?
I'm more into his type.
The guildmaster looked from Joanna to Mog and smiled leeringly.
Mog uncomfortable. Mog needed dolls.
Listen, we just came back from an errand for the king himself. When they get our pay and it's split, you'll get your money and then a little extra for your troubles.
Joanna, why you pay this woman that did nothing for you?
Nothing. You sexy beast. We fed her, clothed her, trained her. She's practically what she is today because of us. I am the guild. When you go into another city, someone else will be the guild. She owes the guild. So she will pay.
Guilds seem important.
Oh, trust me, my friend. It is.
Mog then reached out and took the guildmaster by the throat, lifting her into the air.
Looks like Guild is in trouble. Oh, how much you pay me to save Guild?
It's you.
How much?
Our debt will be paid.
Mog then dropped the blue-faced woman unceremoniously onto the floor. Joanna squatted down next to her.
I'll still pay you, pretty lady. Don't worry about that. What you should be worrying about are the voice throwers.
The guildmaster's eyes darted up quickly.
So, you do know what I'm talking about. How's about you tell me what you know so I can tell the king how I never would have figured it out without your help.
As Ulrich and Talana made their way into the throne room, Talana's eyes kept moving about the area.
You have nothing to fear, Talana. We're doing his bidding right now. We were successful.
I'm not afraid, Ulrich. It's something else.
After bowing another proper etiquette, Ulrich produced the signet he had taken from Frank at the stables and offered it to the guard. Then he turned to face the king.
The army was halted short of the border. Frank delivered your message to your general, and by your grace, we shall go out and join our companion in the search for the Whisperer of Lies.
Of course, young prince.
Ulrich flinched a bit, but held his composure.
My apologies, my lord. But due to circumstances, it appears my brother saw it fit to remove any titles of mine once I left home.
I am sorry for your loss. I was rather fond of your father. When we were young, he and I would take men and hold mock wars against one another. He always won. Bastard. I honestly thought he was good enough to cheat death. It's a shame he was not.
There was a short pause before Talana spoke up.
Your Grace, if I may, might I ask a couple of questions? Something about your home has intrigued me, and I have been waiting to ask.
We are currently speaking of good things, so on with it then.
Your wife, the Queen, Your Grace, does she fancy flowers?
Well, of course. Most women in her position do. Loves the exotic ones, she does.
Has she ever made mention of a blue-stringed paley?
I do believe she has, and not too long ago. Have you seen it?
I haven't, Your Grace, but I would truly love to.
Ulrich had started to remind her of the task at hand, but resisted. Talana was a bit odd, but she wouldn't be asking of this for nothing. The king arose from his throne and began leading them across the room to the stained glass doors. Next to the doors, there stood a regal stand and a small blue simple-looking plant sitting atop the table in a small vase.
I was afraid of this.
Afraid of what?
Guards, please take the king from the room immediately for his safety and return Ulrich's sword to his side.
The king did not hesitate, and as the men returned Ulrich's sword, Talana cast forth her hands, and 3 invisible tendrils became visible, attached to 3 vicious dog-like creatures, all attached to the plant.
Were you expecting this?
I was hoping they'd be smaller.
Meanwhile, Frank was making his way through a particularly dismal-looking area. The few people outside stared openly at him.
It's okay, Ashi. When you're in a new place, you should never assume or stereotype anyone based on your own personal bias of the world. You know, it's not really nice. I mean, take that guy
After
for
making his
example.
way to the end of the street and realizing it was a dead end, he turned to head back, only then to notice there were 7 men waiting for him to turn around.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! What do we got there? Looks like some puny little man's lost on our street.
Do you know Mog?
Who?
Never mind. Say, I was wondering. I'm looking for someone else that doesn't belong here. Not sure what they look like, or even if they're a man or a woman.
Well, what do you know? I'm looking for someone too. Skinny little runt that has my coin pouch.
Now, Frank was a little naive about some things in the world, but he recognized a robbery when he saw one. Instinctively, he took the pup and held it out before him.
You guys have no idea who you're messing with. This is no ordinary pup. This pup is special. This pup is a goddess. This pup just wet on my boots.
Frank quickly set down the puppy, and it ran down the street as quickly as it could.
That didn't turn out like I planned.
Once the group stopped chuckling, they began moving closer to Frank.
All right, guys, enough.
Frank's hand landed on his sword hilt as all of the men stopped.
Look, there's 7 of you, and only 1 of me. I mean, I have a sword, but I'm not skilled enough to take out all of you. So that leaves us with 3 options.
The group waited and watched Frank intently. Frank, concentrating hard, was begging that inner voice which had never steered him wrong before to help him out once again.
Now, option 1. You guys attack, and I maybe get a couple of you. That means 2 of you will probably go with me. Option 2, you guys walk away, and we all live to see tomorrow.
The group looked back and forth to one another. The leader of the thugs finally spoke.
So, what's option 3?
Frank knew it was a long shot. It may not work at all, but it's what the voice told him. And since option 1 was a bluff, and they decided against option 2, there was only one choice left for him.
All right, you guys leave me with no other alternatives.
Frank removed his hand from his sword hilt, marched up to the lead thug and said, Well, what did Frank say? To be honest, I'm not entirely sure myself. Remember when I told you that you, the all-important listener, would be the steward of poor Frank's fate? Well, you really are. What will Frank do next? You tell us. Please visit letsbefrankthepodcast.com and click on the What Would Frank Do link, and in 500 characters or less, tell us what you think Frank should do next. Remember, you are the fates controlling Frank's fate. Let's try not to let him down. Some of the music and sound effects in this podcast come from Tabletop Audio. If you are running a game, the perfect background music and sound effects can be difficult to assemble. But with Tabletop Audio, you can play songs fitting your campaign and use sword clangs and magical bursts to set the mood for your next adventure and take your game to the next level. For your next RPG game, visit tabletopaudio.com. The rest of the music comes from Kevin MacLeod's brilliant website, incompetech.com. If you're looking for music for your podcast, Kevin has composed more than 2,000 royalty-free songs released under the Creative Commons license. So when you need music, think incompetech.com and tell them that Frank sent you.